decisiveness to warfare by using maneuver rather than traditional American attritional approaches. To do this, air-land battle targeted enemy centers of gravity, such as command and control, in order to destroy their cohesion. The doctrine also envisaged a joint campaign effort by air, naval, marine and army forces that employed cutting-edge technology to see deep, far into enemy territory, and then to strike deep using aircraft, artillery and missiles. Consequently, the modern air-land battlefield would be a complicated, non-linear one that would place significant demands on command and control. Air-land battle doctrine also advocates the development of fast-paced and synchronized joint military operations that reflect the principles of agility and depth.
There were certain aspects of air-land battle in this campaign. Not the slightest doubt about that. But the reality was that the Americans engaged in an attritional battle. That divisions like the Tawakana, like the Medina, actually stood their ground, and in some cases fought extremely well. And it was only the fact that they were outgunned by massively superior technology that actually prevented them from, on occasions, inflicting very severe damage on American forces.
By the 24th of February 1991, the coalition believed that 500,000 Iraqi soldiers faced its forces in the Kuwaiti theater. But in reality, many Iraqi divisions had been under strength before they even arrived in Kuwait. Indeed, by the start of the ground war, the combination of coalition aerial strikes and mass desertion had further reduced this figure to about 250,000 troops. To resist the attempted coalition liberation of occupied Kuwait, Saddam adopted a static defensive strategy. He seems to have hoped that a ground war might never actually begin. If it did, Saddam expected the coalition merely to confine its operations to Kuwaiti soil rather than that of Iraq.
Saddam thinks about military activity with a highly politicized pair of spectacles on. As a result, he believed that the West would find it politically very difficult to actually go into Iraq proper. In addition, Saddam looks at the United States as a country which is going to fear a sort of second Vietnam, and going to fear the entanglement that an invasion of Iraq itself might actually produce.
Should military action be required, this will not be another Vietnam. This will not be a protracted, drawn-out war.
In the event of a ground war, the most Saddam could hope for was to force a face-saving compromise deal on the coalition by inflicting heavy casualties on them. Hence, his forces established defenses that aimed to channel attacking coalition forces into pre-surveyed killing zones, where concentrated artillery fire would inflict severe casualties. At worst, Saddam feared that he would be expelled from Kuwait, but without his iron grip on Iraq being threatened in the process. Losing Kuwait would have been a strategic setback, but not a disastrous one for Saddam, because his forces had already extensively looted the emirate, and because he could portray this failure as the heroic defeat of a strong Arab leader who had dared to resist neo-imperialist Western intervention in the region.
The real nightmare scenario for Saddam was a military campaign that not just liberated Kuwait from Iraqi occupation, but in the process undermined his control over the Iraqi state.
Now, what Saddam didn't fully appreciate is that no member of the coalition had the slightest intention of removing him from Iraq. They might have been delighted if Saddam had actually fallen or fallen to an assassin's bullet, but there was not the slightest intention that he should be removed from Iraq by force.
At 4 a.m. on the 24th of February 1991, the ground war commenced, with coalition forces striking the Iraqi defenses that faced the northern border of Saudi Arabia. By then, Saddam had positioned 24 regular army infantry divisions along this border as a first line of defense. Behind these positions, Saddam had concentrated his most effective ground formations in northwestern Kuwait or west of Kuwait's border with Iraq. This mobile reserve comprised 8 regular army divisions, together with 7 elite divisions of Saddam's politically reliable Republican Guard. The latter represented a key target that Schwarzkopf's ground plan intended to destroy.
The Republican Guard was not just a better equipped, better trained, more motivated part of the Iraqi armed forces. The Republican Guard was a separate armed force which was especially politically reliable, that was especially responsible to the Iraqi regime.
The deployment, therefore, of the Republican Guard might be seen in 2 ways. The first way, it might be seen as the sword that was actually behind the shield. Once the shield cracked open, the counter-attacking forces of the Republican Guard would be able to push the coalition back from whence they came, or in fact destroy them. Actually, they were deployed in the northern region of the Kuwaiti theatre of operations so that they could run away, so that they wouldn't be destroyed, if at all possible, by the rampaging coalition forces once they broke through. So they could get back to Baghdad and do their primary job in terms of political defence of the Ba'athist regime, and Saddam Hussein in particular.
During the morning of the 24th of February, the first US Marine and Arab assaults into southeastern Kuwait overran the entrenched Iraqi defences more easily than the coalition had expected. This unanticipated success forced Schwarzkopf to initiate the 7th Corps assault that same afternoon, earlier than planned. That evening, General Franks's divisions quickly breached the weak western end of Iraq's frontier defense line. During the following day, Franks's corps, urged on by Schwarzkopf, conducted a depth battle, using aircraft, attack helicopters and long-range missiles to soften up targets behind the current front line before then engaging them. By using these tactics, 7th Corps rapidly advanced northeast across the flat, featureless sandy terrain to overrun successive Iraqi positions. The thousands of coalition vehicles did not get lost, however, thanks to their use of the new Global Positioning System, GPS technology.
Out in a flat, featureless desert, getting lost using conventional mapping would be very, very easy indeed. With GPS, military forces could know where they were in the middle of the night, in the middle of a sandstorm.
Also absolutely crucial, and going hand in hand with the global positioning systems at night, was something called TOGs, thermal optical gun sights, which meant that with the ability to understand exactly where they were and exactly where the enemy were, they could actually engage the enemy at night. Using the thermals that the enemy's vehicles actually gave off, they could actually attack an enemy at a range of about 2,500 metres, which meant that before the enemy even knew that the coalition forces were there, and especially the Americans and the British using these systems, they were dead.
During the 24th and 25th of February, as Franks's army charged northeast in a great wheel, the 101st US Airborne Division launched a series of air assaults up to 110 miles deep into Iraqi territory to isolate the Kuwaiti theatre from any Iraqi reinforcements. Meanwhile, in the east, the gung-ho US Marines continued their frontal assault towards Kuwaiti City. The early successes achieved by every coalition assault during the first 24 hours of the ground war prompted Saddam to order a phased withdrawal north out of Kuwait on the 25th of February. This withdrawal, however, soon degenerated into a rout characterized by mass surrenders. Some dispirited Iraqi soldiers even surrendered to an unmanned reconnaissance plane. Meanwhile, out in the west, during the 26th of February, General Franks's divisions continued to thunder rapidly east, past the Wadi al-Batin, in the process devastating the Tawakkalna Republican Guard Division in the Battle of the 73rd Easting. That same day, coalition intelligence detected that some of Saddam's Republican Guard were preparing to withdraw north. and this prompted Schwarzkopf to demand that Franks speed up the advance of his forces. These repeated demands provoked a furious disagreement that day between the more